In 1997, the Hollywood Memorial Cemetery, final resting place of countless screen immortals, was in shambles. The crumbling walls, open crypts, and overgrown grounds drove many to remove the bodies of their loved ones. As the bankrupt cemetery languished on the auction block, many feared the gates would close forever. In 1998, a mysterious out-of-towner stepped up and purchased the property. He and his team had a plan.
Welcome to Forever.
Hollywood Forever Cemetery, can I help you?
This will be developed as land. You've done some good outdoor designs. I think we need to do something like the dome.
I'm thinking more like a video terminal.
It's the mausoleum skyscraper.
This should be permanently wired as a theater. And then we would do the same thing internally here. Inside here, there should be another theater.
It's such a great project and a great place. I was hired here to do the interiors and some of the exterior restoration. This does not look like what a typical cemetery office should look like. It's not warm and cozy and perhaps what you'd expect of a funeral home. There's not a big giant rug in here. There's not chintzy furniture. There's not big rolled arm sofas.
Well, it's a strange marriage because you actually have probably the most Tony architects and designers working on the project and one of the most kitschy ideas in the culture, which is memorializing death.
This is where we'll eventually expand this mausoleum.
Well, that's kind of a nice idea to do that.
Yeah, anywhere in this whole area.
So it would be a whole new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I cover a lot of fashion. I'm very tuned into the sort of hip people that are in every different city, the people that sort of make things happen. And I was doing a story about redoing the Hollywood Memorial Cemetery, and the more they talked about it, I thought, this is a fashion story. It's like about dead people, and it's a fashion story. You don't get that very often.
I think you should control every aspect of your life. I can't believe somebody would not think about what their headstone's going to look like. That's going to last a lot longer than their life was. Cemeteries are for the living, so somebody's going to come visit it, and if you have a crappy font on your headstone, I think it would reflect on your attention to detail. Tyler, hats off to him, understood that.
The lake used to go over there and then under, and then that was another lake over there.
If anyone can make a Hollywood cemetery chic, Tyler can.
I salute the new owner of Hollywood Forever, Tyler Cassidy.
Thank you. A little nervous. I'm just a cemeterian from the Midwest. I'm not used to all this attention. My name is Tyler Cassidy. I'm the president of Hollywood Forever.
Tyler Cassidy, who is the president and owner of the cemetery, has taken a very unique approach to this project, and he's a very unique individual.
Very soft-spoken, but yet very intense.
Very handsome, very much leading man material.
Very aesthetically minded, very careful.
He's a visionary.
And he's an artist.
Who'd want to buy a cemetery for $370,000 and, you know, do something like this?
Memories. Beautiful memories of loved ones lost to live on forever. Saying goodbye should leave relatives and friends at peace with everlasting memories. This is what we believe. We are the new Hollywood Forever Cemetery, completely renovated. A peaceful lake, sweeping lawns, trees.
What do you think of her?
No.
Cheryl's by far.
Yeah, Cheryl and Donna so far.
Haven't heard these later ones yet.
Saying goodbye should leave relatives and friends at peace with everlasting memories. This is what we believe. We are the new Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
That's the Faye Dunaway, right?
Too dramatic.
Okay, I think this is the last one. Gina.
Memories. Beautiful memories of loved ones lost live on forever.
Okay, thank you, Gina.
Yeah, I think Donna and Cheryl.
This other company tends to have better talent.
When you take a tour through Beverly Hills, they'll point out so-and-so's house, and maybe they're there and maybe they're not. But when you come to visit them here, you're pretty sure that they're home.
Oh, there's a lot of them. We have a map that we sell at the flower shop. The whole back of it is just full of all the stars that are buried here. There's really a lot of them.
Everything is for sale? Oh, I like this. I'm afraid to touch anything. I'm going to get some of Sheila. Hollywood Forever Cemetery, resting place of Hollywood's immortals.
It encases the casket. Basically, a vault is a vault is a vault. So we know we're talking about the funeral package, right?
Right.
But we're going to take off the embalming charge.
This property is roughly about $7,000 just for the property itself.
That's reasonable.
And then you have other things that go into that. I have brought out the ledger cards, and this is where he is. This is the lot he's in. And this is the lot that we have available that's, I believe, very relatively close to him.
Where is it?
Well, if he's in, this is 114.
Yeah.
115 is going to be right here.
Some people who like particular stars will actually try to be buried somewhere near. For instance, Marilyn Monroe, the gentleman up above her, When he died, they turned him over in the casket, and he's face down over Maryland.
We've just seen this weekend with JFK Jr. His plane goes down, there is an immediate archive of his life. It's already been narrated, it's been stored, and they hit play, and everybody has it. How strange it would have been if they came on the news and said, JFK Jr.'s plane crash, funeral service Monday, interment service to follow. Period. What would we have thought? There's more, isn't there? There's got to be more. He had a life. Well, isn't it strange that that's what we do with the majority of services that we have, that are our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers, our grandmothers, uncles and aunts, is that we actually do that.
We will have really done the family a disservice if we don't give them the opportunity to do the Forever Memorial.
Well, my mom and dad, my father was a William, and his father came from Switzerland, but he died at an early age.
When they're making their arrangements, we need to make an appointment with them to actually begin the media collection for the biography.
Founded at the beginning of the 20th century. What are you going to do for it in the 21st?
We believe that cemeteries are libraries of lives, and if we don't capture the life that's written on that stone, then we've failed at our task. So that 3 or 4 generations from now, after all the people who might have remembered that person are gone, that person should be able to speak for themselves, to tell their story, and be remembered. We think we fail as cemeterians if people are forgotten.
And how do you do that?
Through modern technology. We collect photographs, memorabilia, conduct interviews with the person or their friends and their family, and much like a studio or a biography company, we compile that. Then we show that at funeral services, we show it on kiosks throughout the park, and it's available on the internet. Well, I never intended to go into the family business. My father had a company that owned a number of cemeteries, and I always made a point of telling everyone, don't intend on making a place for me. I don't think I'd been interested in the business because I always looked at it from the point of view of this century. This part of the culture, the art of death, the art of memorialization, it's something that has been so important in every other culture. But it seemed when we got to this century, we weren't utilizing any technology to innovate in this important task of connecting ourselves to the past. You know, there was the ability I saw to record people, to talk to them, to interview them, to preserve their memories. And it's something that the culture was doing and is doing for celebrities. But for everyone else, it wasn't happening.
It's a young and energetic group of people working on an energy-filled idea. It's a new way of dealing and looking at death. The Forever Memorial helps you focus on the life. So what we'll do, I'll give you my card, but then also I'll contact you probably in the next couple of days. So we can make an appointment, we get together.
All right, we'll
and
do
if
it.
you can bring some photographs, and what we'll do is we'll capture them digitally. We'll basically take pictures of your pictures, store them on a floppy disk, and have them here. And
My pictures? What year?
See, that's
when was
the
Lincoln
beauty of it.
assassinated?
I represent Milton Berle, and I've been with him for 30 years. Being involved as a lawyer, I was put in the position through handling distribution of motion pictures, got into production of motion pictures, the original Godzilla, which was 1956.
And all the subsequent ones, except the last one?
Yes. Red tells a joke about how a man said to Mussolini when he was alive, "Do you miss Hitler?" I came here to buy a crypt for myself and for my wife. time comes. I thought we better do this as soon as possible. My wife is in the Motion Picture Hospital in Woodland Hills because she has Alzheimer's. So that's the purpose of my being here. And I met the staff who have been very nice and cooperative and wonderful for us. And that's why I'm here.
They're union swans.
We don't realize in our life here that we are a form of death. It's quite an experience dying. I remember the first time I died in the Korean War, and I came back. And when the spirit of my life came to me, it was the most blissful thing that a human being could have. The third time, after my 2 accidents, I was murdered. But I rose again, man.
He senses it. And also you have to get the piece of grass.
These are the people who live nearby and have a great interest in the cemetery and a love for the cemetery, and most of them are here every day. Each one has their own story.
Whenever I talk to Lee these days, he's always talking about what's happening in the news and the media, and the world is closing in and everything's going wrong except for here.
It used to be, I thought, oh, maybe it's just California, but it's not. It seems to be everywhere. Everything seems to be, I don't know, it just seems to be a lot of chaos, and people are very dissatisfied with their lives or what is happening to them, and they have a lot of resentment and hatred in this country.
Some part of me is also paranoid, and some part of me also must feel the same way. I like being inside these gates.
I don't have any problem here, and as long as I'm able to come here, I'm glad that I can spend a few hours. It's relaxing. There's always a cool breeze comes through here. It's quiet. I meet interesting people, and I've seen a lot of celebrities that have been memorialized here. I believe it's the American dream of peace and tranquility. The American dream, Hollywood forever.
Love you, Nelson. Thank you for all the joy you have given me all these years and continue to give me. God bless you. May you rest in peace. Well, I've been a Nelson Eddy fan since I was 11 years old, when I first saw him in Naughty Marietta in 1935. I fell in love with him then, and I just continue to come here because I want to be sure there's flowers on his resting place.
My name is Robert Coffey. I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I moved to Los Angeles at the start of World War II. I spent 2 years, went in with General Douglas MacArthur in the invasion of the Philippines in October of 1944. Stayed there till the termination of war. After the war, I went back into the military and stayed for 20 years. During the 20 years, my spare time duties was running the movies, so I ran movies for almost 20 years, and that's how I picked up all the knowledge about movies, what stars, who they are. I could tell everything, and that's how I got here. Our next star we're going to will be Jane Mansfield, as we head down this way, please. Thank you. Jane Mansfield was not buried here. She's buried in Pennsylvania, but her fans left her this stone here, which you see has disappeared. Jane Mansfield and her friend were decapitated. The children in the back of the car suffered minor injuries. Our next place we'll go see right up here is Janet Gaynor. Next to Janet Gaynor is her husband, Adrian, who was a famous dress designer. Got the woman ready for the movies, fixed them all up real nice.
What was Adrian's last name?
We don't know that answer.
Do you know where in Pennsylvania Jane Mansfield is buried?
No, we don't know, but we know she's in the family plot somewhere in Pennsylvania, but we can find out Later on, we might be able to give you the correct answer. Okay, thank you. So this is the famous Virginia Rapé who was involved in the Fatty Arbuckle scandal. Fatty Arbuckle, and everybody got intoxicated. Virginia Rapé walked in on the party, and Fatty Arbuckle managed to take care of business, causing him to be arrested and charged with rape.
Well, you gotta be careful in Hollywood. You gotta be careful. You gotta watch your P's and Q's, like my foster mother used to say. Watch your P's and Q's, and especially in Hollywood.
I think the whole drive here, in a sense, is to outwit death. And to outwit death in this city seems to be to achieve fame.
But when your time comes, it doesn't matter, I suppose. Look at some of these people. These people, they're very well known, and so that's why, you know, they get all this tribute. But as far as myself, they would never come and pay tribute to me, you know? I have no family or anything. But I like it because it's a place to escape the outside world.
We love this place. It's a world treasure. You step on the grounds and you can feel it. It is seething with something magical. It's not even in a very pleasant area. This is a pretty rough neighborhood at night, and yet inside the cemetery, these 62 acres are an oasis. They're a sanctuary. Everyone feels it. As a Midwesterner, coming to Hollywood has been culture shock. The speed of everything. It's an asphalt jungle. But inside the gates, the peace here is limitless. Los Angeles Magazine declared us one of the 101 sexiest places in LA. And a lot of people do find cemeteries to be a little bit spooky, but it's also an extremely romantic place. It's an extremely exciting and mysterious place, and it's a very sexy place. We have a number of screen lovers here, including Valentino and Douglas Fairbanks and Tyrone Power. There's also wonderful swans and lakes and benches. They say there's a number of hidden makeout spots, which I can assure you there are. It's just an extremely romantic place.
Hattie's gonna be right about here.
No, where's Hattie now?
Hattie is at Rosedale.
Okay, that's what I thought. So why would she be disinterred?
In her will, she said she wanted to be buried at the Hollywood Memorial Park, and then Jules wouldn't let her be buried here.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. So I came.
How did you find that out?
Her nephew contacted us.
I was the baby in Gone with the Wind when I was 11 days old.
She's a beautiful baby. The most beautiful baby ever. Yes.
And Hattie McDaniel handed me to Clark Gable in one of the scenes that showed a real close-up of me. And I've always admired Hattie McDaniel, and I thought I should show up.
Where did this idea come from?
Neglect was easy to fix. You repair monuments one by one, you fix roofs, you repair roads. But the cemetery closed its doors to minorities. And the story of LA is that so much change has happened so that by the time the old owner was an old man, he was the minority in this neighborhood. And he was surrounded by blacks and Latinos. And he had shut his gates on them, and now he was shut inside his gates, and the cemetery slowly began to die. That's the inheritance we have, and that's part of what today is about.
You know that I fly away, oh glory, I fly away in the morning, or when I die, hallelujah, by and by, oh, I'll fly away.
Hattie McDaniels died before I was born, but I feel like I've known her all my life. She is one of the screen immortals, and people will come to know her for many, many years to come. That's something I like to think of as 20th century magic, and the best name we have for it is Hollywood. You can walk across these beautiful grounds and read the story of this place. It's etched in stone year after year over the past 100 years. On October 26, 1952, though, a very important part of this history was omitted.
I sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry. My heart is too full to tell you just how I feel, and may I say thank you.
5,000 people turned out to pay homage to Ms. McDaniels at her funeral, but it did not happen here. Her final wish to be buried among her peers, like Victor Fleming, who directed her in Gone with the Wind, and the other legends here that she belonged among, that wish was denied. The man actually who made that decision is in this building today, 2 corridors over in a crypt. I can't say why he made the decision he made. I only know that in time it came to haunt him. Eventually, all those people, all those communities that he had shut out from this cemetery ended up being his neighbors.
In my neighborhood, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, in my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. In my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine.
The segregation policy was the way of Jules Roth, who had a number of different issues about different things, and one of them was race.
He was of a totally different era. He was really, really old Hollywood.
For the first year, I was constantly feeling the presence of Jules every day. Quite a traveler, so whatever port he was in, he seemed to collect pornography or nudity, French, Greek, Italian, everything. There were a number of his yacht parts scattered throughout the maintenance shed. And this yacht was supposed to be for scattering ashes, but instead it was a yacht with a full crew and a captain, and it was just for his own joy.
When Jules Roth built the cemetery, for whatever reason, he decided it needed to be the only cemetery in America with a swingers bar. So there was sort of like a dry bar like James Bond would have enjoyed with, a little sink in it and a nice refrigerator for the booze.
This painting was in the lobby. I was thinking Mr. Roth must have a bizarre sense of humor, because when you look at it, it completely is a fiery brimstone scene. And I think if you've lost someone, you don't want to sit there and contemplate this vision of hell.
There was a part of him I surmise was not too good. Some of this material I discovered later in a book published about the oil dealings in LA in the early 20s. And I never would have known that he was the type of person they described in that book.
Jack Roth was involved with some of the leading swindlers in Los Angeles at that time, people like C.C. Julian, one of the great confidence artists in 20th century American history, and Jules Roth, who at that time went under the name of Jack Roth, was Julian's right-hand man. He was the vice president of the Julian Petroleum Corporation. He shared the wild nightlife, stopping at Hollywood nightclubs, dating Hollywood starlets. They were quite a duo. When Roth was indicted for defrauding and swindling investors, Roth himself is sentenced to 5 years to 55 years in San Quentin. And the sentencing judge reminded him that much of the money stolen was taken from elderly persons. So I guess it's not a big jump from that to funeral work.
Among other things, Mr. Roth was known for being paranoid, so he obviously planted an operative in his operation to report directly to him, where none of the other employees would know that this was secretly his spy. So we have these hundreds of pages of daily reports from this operative number 16. July 7th, 1951. Operative number 16 reported to work this morning and assisted Lloyd in opening crypt for incoming interment. Operative has heard reports that Bernie, aside from being a drinker, runs around with a very fast Hollywood crowd. Respectfully submitted, operative He said that Miss Phillips is on a trip to Hawaii paid for by Mr. Roth. Also that he gave her the blue Cadillac and that he's sleeping with her, and also gave Phone Girl her car for the same reason. August 26th, respectfully submitted, operative. Although Bernie was on time in coming in, he proceeded to tell everyone of his wild night in the Drake Hotel with 3 girls, 2 sailors, and a Marine. August 15th, 1951, number 16. Paul and operative talked of Phone Girl again, and he said, quote, "She's no spring chicken, but there is plenty of spring in her yet." More will develop on this item. Sources, operative has learned that one of the new lawn crew, either a grave digger or gardener, has access to marijuana. He didn't know whether it was San Quentin or Alcatraz, but said Mr. Roth had done 5 years. Both agree Mr. Roth has the manners and way of a con man. Respectfully submitted, operative number 16.
We don't even know if he did it to us while I was working here. It's part of his scheme. It's part of the man. I think he just wanted to know what was going on. He just had to know.
Mr. Roth definitely is a ghost here already. He had so much influence, and we're still affected by his actions. And let me see, you can stay sober if you pluck a feather off the back of the goose, right?
And also
Have you been protecting these calamars out here?
Yeah.
Dress.
And I don't think I've met you.
I'm Don Pierce.
Don, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes.
I want to thank you for what you've done.
Well, thank you. So I hear you worked here.
I worked in the mortuary here.
Oh, you were? Tell me about Jules.
No comment.
Did you ever get to go to his house?
No.
Yeah, I ended up moving right by it, and they're renovating it right now, so I go in all the time.
Well, whose house? Who's going to be? I mean, is it sold?
No, it's
Well,
for
a
sale
friend
right
of
now.
mine who goes to the county auctions picked up some things that were out of the house, and they auctioned them off.
Oh, wow.
And one of them was a bust of him.
A bust of Jules?
Yeah, and I didn't realize he'd ever had that done.
No, I didn't either.
Jules Roth was a character, but I used to look for his car, and when I saw that car, and I thought, oh, the old man's here. You know, boy, did they embalm him well. Whoa, he was as hard as a rock.
Yeah.
Just like a rock. And the same way with when we took care of Groucho Marx, another one, over embalmed. Oh, I mean, like a rock.
So how did you meet Don?
Oh, well, we're going to go to the home of Don Hill, and he had gone to a public auction the county has every month and bought some artifacts that belong to Jules Roth. He's strange, you know. He does massages for a real business.
He does what?
Massages.
Professional or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. $60 a whack.
So he's a collector and a masseur.
Well, I think somebody backs him because there's millions of dollars worth of art. Millions. Wait till you see some of this stuff. You won't believe it. Well, hello, Mr. Hill. I want you to meet Tyler Cassidy.
Nice to meet you.
This is Don Hill.
Come on in.
Well, this is the famous bronze of Jules Roth. Come over and take a look at it.
You can see that if he smiled, he'd crack his face.
I knew with all the controversy with him and everything that it was a worthwhile piece to buy, because I hope to sell the piece. Do you have a special place you'd like to put this?
I really didn't want to have anything to do with the head after that. I didn't think I would buy the head, especially when I was sent the letter. It was an attempt to make me move faster or take a higher price. But then I thought, what a weird place for him to end up.
It was such a remarkable resemblance to him that it was kind of freaky, if I may use that word, not derogatorily, but I look at it, that face, and it's Mr. Roth.
I think a lot how I'm sitting at his desk, his exact likeness is sitting behind me, and there's going to be another person who at some point is going to be sitting, you know, in that, not that I'm going to have a bust done of my head, but I too much identify with it. throughout history, in portraits and oil paintings, the original intention seemed to be to capture the likeness of a person because they were going to die. So you had a painter come, and the painter would come and capture you, capture your likeness so you could be remembered. It's not so far removed from what I'm doing.
We're trying to preserve the memories of people's lives. We're all going to be remembered, but this is an opportunity to be remembered the way you would like to be remembered. And so we want to do something about your life as you see it, as you want to be remembered by your friends, by your family, by those you worked with.
And mainly what I saw, at least highlights of things I did.
Right.
Well, it's easy. I can do that. Did you see Rushmore?
Yes.
The movie? And the kid that's in it? That's me.
If we put 4 of those cubes in this place, we would have the equivalent capacity that it currently has with 80,000 bodies. So if this worked, you would need an acre of land.
The question is, do you want to store a tissue sample or the code itself, you know, like on a chip?
There'd be no way to encode the DNA digitally right now.
And it's very simple to get the sample. It is a mouth swab. You know, like when you've been tested for strep throat, and that's the DNA record. And then at the same time, it presents the biography. So imagine going to an abandoned district, tearing down some, falling down buildings, making a park, putting a few project cubes in it.
The Forever Center?
We're changing the death care industry. At least that's our goal. And we're changing it in a number of ways. We're changing the experience for the person who comes to visit the cemetery. We're also changing the experience for us as employees. Traditionally, we're caretakers of monuments. What we're becoming is caretakers of memories.
As the forever experience evolves, it'll become richer and richer to the point that you almost experience living at the time the person lived.
It's like the growth of intellectual property, you know. It's people's thoughts that are really going to be the valuable thing. How did they perceive the world? Could we see it through their eyes?
Well, ideally, you have a small chip that's attached to your sunglass or whatever, and every part of your experience is being captured.
That's right.
And you've got some box the size of one of these boxes, and that is your memory.
And you could choose at the end of each week to go through it and edit it, and what do you want to keep?
Exactly.
Whatever new technology comes along, we're going to upgrade. We're going to use the best we can to get the messages across.
While we are the first people doing what we're doing, we are worried that other people are going to try to follow suit.
We don't really think anyone's our competition right now because we're doing so many things at this point that no one else is doing. And, you know, traditionally, for a century, our competition has been Forest Lawn, mainly.
I actually had a client that was making his arrangements, and I was very honest with him and showed him around so he could get a good feel of maybe what he wanted to do. And over there, they kind of, when they found out that he might be looking here, were like, oh, you don't want to go there, and we're just pretty much bad-mouthing us. And I thought that was really strange that someone would have to go that distance to make a sale.
Forest Lawn changed the way America and other countries buried their dead. Dr. Hubert Eaton is the one who did all of that.
And you and Hubert Eaton are both from Missouri.
The biography I read said that Mr. Eaton was a pre-need salesman from Missouri when he showed up, and that Forest Lawn was a municipal cemetery in shambles, and no one thought he could do anything with it.
Is this one of the amazing Hollywood coincidences we hear so much about?
You never know. But his entire goal was to create a cultural center. And so he bought all of the molds for Michelangelo's statues and had them replicated. He was playing with technology as much as he could at the time, and then he died. But you walk through the park and it seems kind of dated now. You know, a giant theater. I've never really seen anyone in it. On the hour opens up and a replica of Last Supper appears, where you walk through the grounds and press a button and the trees talk and tell you about the statues around you. It's not so far removed from what I'm doing. It's just different tools, and the concept's kind of related.
Welcome to Forest Lawn. We're happy you could attend this viewing of our stained glass recreation of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. As Dr. Hubert Eaton, the founder of Forest Lawn, visited Milan, a great idea was born. Was there a way to preserve Leonardo's masterpiece forever? can see, the genius of Leonardo is clearly evident.
On New Year's Day, 1917, Dr. Hubert Eaton sat on a hillside in what was then Forest Lawn Cemetery and overlooked the brown grass and the misshapen monuments and felt depressed. And that day, he wrote the Builder's Creed, and in that creed, he pledged to make Forest Lawn a place for the living. I believe in a happy, eternal life. I believe those of us who are left behind should be glad in the certain belief that those gone before, who believed in him, have entered into that happier life. I believe most of all in a Christ that smiles and loves you and me.
For many years, Dr. Hubert Eaton, founder of Forest Lawn, had dreamed of finding a smiling Christ. Nowhere, it seemed, had there been portrayed the figure of a Christ who smiled. In all the great painting and sculpture, the only portrayals were of a Christ in agony upon the cross. Dr. Eaton had a deep conviction that Christ smiled and loves you and me.
Baby was the very first statue bought by Dr. Eaton. Although the board was not comfortable with it, Dr. Eaton's vision was different. He saw things differently. The Duck Baby statue is a young little girl holding two little ducklings in her arms, and that was the beginning of the grand collection of art. For example, David. 16 feet 9 inches, David stands tall here in Forest Lawn, Glendale. We've lost him twice to earthquakes. He's weak at his ankle, and that's where he breaks when the earth shatters. What makes our churches really special is there's a little singing canary in every church. Early on, when building the very first church, Dr. Eaton stopped and asked one of the gardeners, "What is the most alive thing there is?" And the gardener said, "Singing birds in the garden." And indeed, in every church in Forest Lawn, there are flowering plants and a little canary that sings to everyone that enters its doors.
Forever has a creed, and that's to become the definitive archive of human memories. And everything we do here and why we came here stems from that.
Mr. Schreibman, this is the theater where your biography will be available. It's not only available here, but also at the kiosk out in the Abbey. And we're going to be installing kiosks at other locations around the grounds and have long-term plans for a dedicated theater building. But it's also available actually at all of our other locations and over the internet, which means it's available, globally. You can type in a name, which I'll type in your last name here. And H-R-E-I. And there it is. As soon as it comes up, you can touch view, touch the name, or touch the picture. You can touch the picture and...
You want me to be touching this?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. I think that we're really building the foundation for something unbelievable. Over the next 20 or 30 years, I just hope to see how much further can we go as far as preserving the personality of the person. We've talked about personality emulation software, holograms, or artificial intelligence. 100 years from now, it'll be unbelievable. I was contacted by Tyler and Bill to develop the splash screen for the software. And I had known what project they were working on, was really excited about it. I was really excited about the animation because to me it was the universal tombstone. That many, many families, when going to visit someone's memorial, would be seeing my animation. And one thing led to another, and about 14 months ago I joined the company full-time. We've all known each other since 7th grade, so it was only natural for me to do this.
We all went to high school together. We'd known each other about 20 years.
Bill and I met at a baseball game with our big brothers.
Never thought we would be running a cemetery, but we had many conversations about forming businesses together.
Tyler was always smiling like he knew something that we didn't. That's what I remember about Tyler.
I work with a lot of my friends here. They were all interested in the business, and I don't know, I think friends and family at a cemetery, that's a good thing. To everyone, the future is in our hands. Let's not drop it because we can't see it's only a lifetime. Here we are as freshmen. This is Jay.
Looking rather dapper.
Very dapper. Quite the turtleneck. These are reindeer.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's Bill.
As my life gently fades from the records, my existence will become an unreality. I love you, I love you, I love you.
It's me.
There's Tyler.
Man is born to live and not prepare to live.
With love and hate and passions just like mine, they were born and then they lived and then they died.
I was working with the Fox News Channel as a weekend producer, and I came out to cover a weekend feature story on the Hollywood Cemetery, and about 5 minutes into the shoot, I realized there was a lot more going on here than just the cemetery. Really, by the time I left here, I was hooked, and I had been thinking for a while about the next step after Fox, and when this came up, I wouldn't leave them alone until they brought me on. The bureau chief at Fox thought I was crazy. Oh, you work for a cemetery? But that's okay. I've always been a bit odd anyway. We started talking about, production a bit.
Yeah.
But we should spend some time talking about, obviously, how we want to gear ourselves and, what the plan of action is.
And right now we need to definitely respond to everyone who comes to us and says, we want your product.
Mm-hmm. So this production flow is going to come over. We're going to have a lot more production.
Well, technically we have 30 appointments over the next, hopefully, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to standardize the look of each one of the biographies so we can really get a range of the time that we're spending and really break down how much it's costing us for each one of these levels. We have this immense list of names. Unfortunately, it is being added to.
Right.
So.
Well, I'd like to start standardizing the tributes for each level. I know a couple weeks ago you said you're watching A&E biography and you're like, oh, we're so close to being there. And no, it's not a fact of us close being there. We are there. We can do everything that they're doing at the same quality. Working in the biz, as they say out here, you get a lot of people who really feel like if they stopped what they do, the world would stop. And you've really got to step back when you're in the business and say, okay, we're in the entertainment business. We're here to make people's lives a little bit nicer. But here, you're extending someone's legacy. And that excites me. That excites me to no extent. It's, it's like doing our own hieroglyphics or so on and so forth. It's like, it's the beginning of immortality in a lot of ways. I moved out here in 1997, of course, to pursue a career in film, and was out of work and answered an ad in the paper. They said, sure. I like the 50s and the 60s because with the advent of personal movie cameras, a lot more people got to make movies. And if Kodak or whomever, didn't make a camera for the consumer market, this film would never have been made. And we're kind of in that renaissance now, too, because, you can spend $1,000 and get a digital camera and use the equipment that basically I use upstairs and make a really good movie. I'd like to see everybody's face on the movie screen. Everybody should have that feeling in their life.
With Paramount being the holdback of the cemetery, to me it fit into all of the ideas I was developing.
Throughout history, the relationship with Paramount starts with the birth of Paramount. The land that Paramount was built on was purchased from the cemetery. That land that Paramount sits on was and is exactly the same size and shape as the cemetery. It's exactly half of the original allotment of land.
And now, folks, we are entering the gates that so many try to crash and so few pass.
Paramount would not like to hear this, but I saw Paramount as basically part of the cemetery. The two were interconnected.
People were aware of the cemetery all through the years, but it wasn't like we made visitations to it. There were enough things dying around the lot in the early days, including our pictures, so that we didn't need to go and be reminded of the proximity of death.
In a way, this is sort of providing what Andy Warhol predicted, the 15 minutes of fame, right? We're giving
everyone the chance to have a piece of that Paramount feeling. We are not Paramount. Paramount makes films with stars in them. We make films with our parents and our sisters and brothers in them. That 15 minutes is significant because that's the average length of our tributes.
We're fairly certain that folks, when they have an option of having their biography produced, they'll choose Hollywood over some other location. So we see it as strategic.
If we're successful, this should be the biggest movie studio in the world.
The type of cemetery that exists in my mind is one about leaving essences behind, leaving images behind. And that's what film is in a very strong way. It captures this light and it preserves that. And it's the power of that image.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Evans, and I'm Senior Vice President of Paramount Pictures.
What you're watching here is the lead up to saving the studio. And what preceded that was the fact that the cemetery behind Paramount was offering a hefty price to buy the studio. You see, in Hollywood, cemeteries always do well. After all, it's Hollywood. In the late 60s, the film business was terrible. All the studios were doing very badly, and they made a very attractive offer to us. So Mike Nichols was shooting a film on the lot, and Peter Bart came to me and said, "Go on, let Mike shoot some footage on you and show it to the board of directors that we're not dead yet."
So Bob Evans thought of this rather interesting idea of presenting the board of directors with this little home film directed by Mike Nichols. Not that Bob Evans, who was a great ham actor, needed a director.
I could go on for an hour and tell you about 20 or 30 projects that are in various stages of development and bore you with it. So I won't. But I want to bring up one project, and that's The Godfather.
I have a feeling that Evans directed Nichols on that film.
Paramount is going to be paramount in the industry in the 70s. I promise you that.
It was a plea to keep the studio open. And it was possibly the most successful plea I've ever made. Rather than tombstones, we have sound stages. And we're that close away, one vote actually, away from having it sold to the cemetery behind us. Imagine to sell our studio to a cemetery. The property was a star, and it was Paramount's.
I guess when there's a constant awareness of death and you're surrounded by it, you become much more aware of life. My first experiences in an embalming room, I left invigorated because I knew I was alive, and it was so clear that this body was no longer alive, and whatever had animated it, whatever had been life, was completely gone. And somehow, just that simple, basic experience was so reassuring in a certain way.
This mic. Here I go. Thanks.
Yep.
One of the things that this has really taught me is to enjoy life, you know, because you never know. It makes you really, at least for me, take a hard look at it, enjoy it. Even when life isn't giving me all the breaks or whatever that I want, I still enjoy it. One day I walk into the prep room and notice one of my girlfriends on the prep table. One of my high school girlfriends, she had passed away. And I was kind of shocked in the sense of, wow, someone that you know, I mean, intimately that you knew, who was young. I mean, she was 28. She just didn't live long enough.
Bud Testa, and every year I handle the memorial services for Rudolph Valentino.
When did you start doing them?
Oh, let's see, it must have been in the 40s, I think.
40s? So you knew Dietrich Flame? Was that her name?
Yes, Dietrich Flame.
So was she the real Lady in Black, or was she another one, or just
no,
one?
She was the real one.
She was the real one. Is that her?
Yes, that's her.
This man came walking in, very elderly man, and had on quite a colorful suit, and asked me what I was doing for the Valentino ceremony. He certainly couldn't be doing it for the money, because he basically must have charged me, as far as a PR cost, what he was charging in 1950.
Oh, I guess I've been doing it for over 50 years. I had my own publicity office. I used to handle Rudy Valley, Ginger Rogers, and a lot of the old-timers of that period. And the cemetery was one of my accounts.
It's kind of like a cycle for him. He shows up 3 months before to talk to whoever's here to tell them it's time again.
Valentino, he died when I was still very young, but I was a fan of his. I remember I was just a young kid, and I had a dime in my pocket, and there was a Valentino picture, and I walked 5 miles just to see the picture. There's no one that's ever touched Valentino.
I'm tumbling down, remember, in September, in the rain.
Excuse me, this is private.
This is a Chamber of Commerce benefit. Well, they approached me last year and wanted to have a Halloween party, and traditionally we always say no to Halloween parties at funeral homes and cemeteries, but after the past year and after being out here and the way they presented it to me, I just thought, you know, people want to come here on Halloween. There must be a reason. There's always this issue of what's appropriate around the burial ground. Are you being offensive in any way? I think it's also very important to know when it's appropriate to have a sense of humor about death. Death isn't funny. It's the most serious thing we face. It's the most mysterious thing. You can treat it with nonchalance, or you can treat it as though it's something very sacred. And I think humor doesn't make something less sacred. You know, as a dead person, I would like people around me to be laughing or to be having a good time.
That sounds like that.
Well, when I was 18, I started out oil wrestling. I was with an oil wrestling troupe here in Orange County. We would wrestle men, and they would bid on us. We would come out in a costume and dance and woo-hoo-hoo and collect tips. And it was really an ego boost some nights. I mean, you know, it was about being slippery and them having the chance to be slippery with us. Yeah, that was pretty much the essence of it. This is more of a family atmosphere. I feel like I'm a part of something a little bit bigger here. It fulfills a need that I've been missing for a long time. A spiritual need. I would like you to tell us a little bit about how you met your wife. I remember one time you were telling me about how you met your wife. I thought that was a great story.
Yes, it's a very interesting story. I saw her in a picture that she had made for Universal. It was called, I remember it, The Cat Creeps. I saw that picture and I said, my God, that girl is something else. That's gorgeous. And I was passing a play. I went over there and I saw her in person. I said, oh, you know, just knocked me over. Excuse me. 78 movies. She's beautiful today. Saw her yesterday. I look at her. Today I look. She's still so beautiful. She's older. She's 82 years old now. But she looks beautiful.
I always tell my people the thing that you have to do more than anything is listen. Just constantly listen. People have so much to say at this point in their life. They really want someone who's interested in what they're saying and can just sit there quietly and listen.
Most of us are here. I don't see my mom. That's my uncle and my dad. Oh, there she is. She's right up above my dad there, yeah. July the 1st, my brother Bob's passed away, or died, whatever you want to call it. He's buried here now up in the crypt, and we just got his name going to put up there. And the cemetery here is doing a biography on my brother, which I was very happy to do. They really do a good job. They came to our house. We were all photographers, so we had a lot of pictures for him to use of Bob's. So it'll be great to be able to come here and relive Bob's life. My God, you're only 20 minutes late today.
Oh wow, this is the picture of
That's
Bob's. That's one of the
Wally
famous
Berry.
pictures, one of the crybaby pictures.
Yeah, that's when he was with Wally Berry in the movie called Wyoming. But Bob's had a good part in that. We were born right next to Max Sennett's studio, which meant when they were making a movie, they just need a kid. They'd come over and grab one of us. We had them all sizes and sexes. I was an actor. I was a child actor. Bob's was a child star. That was the difference. He loved it. I didn't like it. If I ever had a kid and even looked like he was going to tap dance, I'd kick him clear across there. It's just not a good profession for kids. It eats them up and spits them out.
But Bob's continued on.
Bob's continued on, but he was really doing really well. He's like, in those days, like in the 50s, he was making about probably $2,000 or $3,000 a week on the TV. And all of a sudden, he said that he asked himself, and he says he had a calling that said, isn't there more to life than this? And that's when he became a Methodist minister.
Yeah, it's still really difficult.
Welcome to Forever.
We were 9 children, and we were all born at home, about 600 feet from the general offices of Max Sennett Studios. And in those days when they would make a film, my dad started out renting horses to them for some of their Western films. And later on, when they wanted children, they'd say, hey, Watson, you got any kids home about so big or whatever? And he'd say, just a minute, I'll go home and see. So that's how we all started in films.
their union swan.
We have to give them a Are we allowed to say that?
There goes that job.
Oh. Evelyn's the oldest.
I'm old. I'm Evelyn.
It's so small.
I'm 90, and this is my sister Margie. She's 87.
I saw all of Valentino's movies, so I thought he was great. When he died, school was over, and the crowd was gathering all over by the mortuary, and it was exciting, you know. I was about 12. Now you find me.
The thing is, you can't even see their faces.
Oh, I can see. I can't see a little girl.
Hold it up
Do you
high
see
now.
a child? I had blonde, short hair.
What is this here?
That's a man.
See, you can't tell because Margie, you can't see the faces.
Well, that's not a girl.
Here's somebody here, and then here's somebody holding a baby, and that's.
Oh no, I didn't hold a baby.
No, and this has dark hair, and your hair was blonde.
Well, maybe I photographed dark. Can't you find me? I know every time I came with a rose, there was another woman in black that always put flowers there. She'd beat me.
There's always been fake ladies in black.
There was one I saw, somebody told me she was the old lady in black's daughter.
Yes, she came in a wheelchair.
There was a new one this year, and she's got actually a website.
The famous lady in black became as much a legend of the Valentino service as almost any part of it. She was always the first person the crowd came to look for.
Only pretty lady in black was my mother. I cry when I talk about
Her story was that when she was sick in the hospital, she wrote a letter to Valentino, and he visited her, and the two of them made a pact that whoever survived would visit the other person's grave and bring flowers. And so the lady in black, her name was Dietra Flamme, used to come there for years and years and do that. And one time she came dressed in white and announced that it was her last appearance, and she was going to work as a missionary with the Indians in Arizona. And she died a few years ago, but she was fondly remembered by everyone.
This is the grave of Dietra Flamme, and the grave was actually really overgrown. We didn't even know that was her, and we wanted to fix it up. There's an old word that cemeterians used to be called, and that was caretakers. It's a very simple word, but it's what we should do. We're supposed to take care of those we're entrusted to take care of, the dead. You know, I'm in a very strange business. There's this sense, oh, you should go try and do something normal. You're surrounded by death all the time. It has to affect you. So I decided to take some time off from the entire business and write and read for a few months. But I found that the only thing I could really read about were books about death, books about Egypt, books about funerary traditions. Even though I was trying to get away from it, it's what my mind wanted to focus on. In a state of freedom, my mind went back to it. So I realized there was a lot I was still working out.
That would be great. Let me give you the name of the deceased. It's Kathy with an E, K-A-T-H-E.
There's so many different designs now that you have to show them what your selection is and kind of find out what their tastes are a little bit and direct them that way. Well, as I found out, the ashes are able to go in this, and I believe that this lights up. And then we have another feature over here where you're able to put some of your ashes in a little capsule right here and shoot it up into space. We are now here at the columbarium, one of the many choices a person has as far as cremation goes. I brought my daughter here. Her name's Summer. She's 8 years old, and she made mention of how it reminded her of the Titanic. Well, this is actually a place I have purchased for myself, my daughter, and my fiancé. And below it will be my mother and my aunt. And then my friend of 15 years, Marty, is right here. And I'm hoping in the future years to have all my friends around me if they choose cremation. It's kind of comforting, and it's shopping, it's fun.
We inherited the Valentino event, and I'm going over to visit Bud Testa. He's at the hospital. He's been there since last week. He has Parkinson's, and it's gotten a little worse lately, so he's not going to be able to attend the event, and it will be the first time, I think, since the 1950s since he won't be there. Hi, Bud. How you doing?
Yeah, how you feeling?
Bud, if I could just get you to envision that it's the beginning of the event and you're just going to welcome everyone to the event and welcome them to the 73rd Annual Memorial. And then if there's anything else that comes to mind when you say that you want to say, just go ahead and say it.
Should I add the closing at the same time?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. We welcome you again to the 73rd Annual Rudolph Valentino Memorial Services.
Excellent.
I have a list here of stars that have been there one time or other. Want me to read that?
Sure. Sure, give me 1 second. Okay.
Among the famous stars that have appeared at the Valentino Memorial Services were Rudy Vallee, Rod Taylor, Lou Ayres, Eddie Murphy, Jean Harlow, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Joey Bishop, Sammy Davis Jr., Gloria Stewart, and James Dean, and probably dozens of others that I failed to admit, but they all came at some time or other.
That's a big list. Why do you think that is?
It's a legend. It's one of Hollywood's most famous legends, and Hollywood loves legends. So it goes on, it carries on in its own weight. I just think it'll go on forever.
I do too.
I hope so.
I do too. It'll be going on a long time. Forever is the right word.
Maybe you and I will be catching the final preview in hell or something.
You never know. Yeah, I hope for better.
My name is Richard Sennett, and this is my wife, Deborah. And our daughters, Megan.
I'm Sarah.
Megan and Sarah. Correct me there. And we're here to pay honor today to Rudolph Valentino. Well, I have an interesting hobby. I hunt ghosts. And I've been looking into the phantom of Rudolph Valentino, which has been seen countless times in the film Capital here.
What got us really involved with Rudolph Valentino is my daughter Sarah. She is a total nut over Rudolph Valentino. Her whole room, she has over 300 photos. Her whole room is set in the 1920s. She has a life-size poster even of Rudolph. And she has written poems for him, and she's come here a half a dozen times for homage on her birthday. She's brought roses and has left notes and has kissed the tomb a half a dozen times.
Well, he's extremely handsome. He has a nice butt. He's very natural with his silent acting. His eyes just like explain everything. And he has this wonderful look. And I feel like the only sane one here.
We welcome you in to the 73rd Annual Rudolph Valentino Memorial Services here at the Hollywood Cemetery. I'm happy to see such a large group in attendance, and I know we have an interesting program for you.
Over the desert wild and free rides the Bolshevik of Araby. He seems to call her to his arms. I'm the Sheik of Araby. Your love belongs to me. I'll gaze into your eyes beneath the desert skies. The stars that shine above will light our way to love. You're o'er this land with me, the Sheik of Araby.
Hey, one cup of jam.
I hope it doesn't get much colder. That's what I was thinking, you know, maybe I should bring a sweater or something.
As a 70-year employee at Paramount, I want to welcome you to the community. All of us in Hollywood owe you a great debt of gratitude.
Thank you very much.
And I think I'm just one thanking you. There are many who would like to be here with me thanking you, so I will represent them and represent Paramount, your neighbor. And I have to tell you, when the people see how young you look, they're going to say, this fellow owns this cemetery. You look so young, I feel like burping you before I talk to you.
In the early 1920s, released from the tension of long years of war, the world was bent on pleasure. One of the master showmen of those days, and one of the most beloved figures in the motion picture industry, was Rudolph Valentino.
Tom and I were moving some boxes, and we were using a golf cart, and he was on the back of the golf cart, which I was driving. And about 3/4 of the way there, which is only about 150 yards, he was no longer on the golf cart. And he was laying flat on his back in the middle of the road. In about 15 seconds, he went into a seizure, called 911, and the ambulance was there within a few minutes, but he was rushed to Cedars-Sinai, bed 1 in the emergency room. When his head hit, his brain sloshed forward and hit the front of his skull, so the front of his brain was swelling, and was unconscious from Monday till Friday. But on Friday, he finally came out of it and was, basically able to talk and lay there. That was the first time since Monday afternoon that I actually smiled again.
You know, I wasn't there when it happened, but just watching Jay and how affected he was by having to see what he saw, and his family's emotions and, our emotions, they stick.
It really personalized what happens when something tragic happens, and when you have to go to the hospital and just spend all the time there. It became very apparent that every family is going through this. When they finally come to us, they've been through weeks or days or months of this.
Your perspective shifts completely to this ultimate focus of there's nothing else going on around you, and that's, this life or death struggle in front of you. It's scary, and it just came so out of left field. It was so random. Falling off the back of a golf cart, and to end up in intensive care is insane.
Life. What is life? Life is spring and winter. We're born, it's spring, we blossom, we harvest, winter comes, we're gone. That's life. Spring and winter. But you people take from me to cherish your lives, your wives, your husbands, because you can't take things for granted in this world. You don't know what can happen, like this can happen. Why did this happen? I question and I can't question. But I'm so happy, I have to say it, that I cherished with her, and we never did stop, because now that's great memories. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know if I'm getting it across. What I'm trying to say is, she and I, we believed to live.
To love and to cherish till death do us part.
Couldn't imagine a more beautiful day to have this beautiful event. Special day. I've known Bill since I was 12.
And I too have known Bill since I was 12. I think when I finally realized that Bill was in love was when I was talking to him on his cell phone. And he was describing how beautiful she was. And I was so happy for him. And I'm so happy now. It's amazing.
Hear, hear.
Actually, it was Leslie's suggestion that we do it here. Being the cemetery's flower gardener, she appreciates the beauty of the place. And when she first suggested it, I wasn't real sure that I wanted to do that. But the more I thought about it, a cemetery is a place where you are faced with how short life is, and you realize you have a limited amount of days, and who do you want to spend them with? You know, I think it's an appropriate thing. You know, we all have a certain amount of time on Earth, and I want to spend it with Leslie.
I don't remember much of the incident. I remember getting off a plane the night before and waking up in the hospital. Since the incident, it's been a struggle every day. But if there's any positive things that come out of it, you learn to cherish life. And maybe part of it was the incident, maybe part of it was the work that I do, because I see so many, elderly people, their tributes, and they've lived a very full life. Isaiah Thomas had something interesting to say. They said, if I'm dead one day, and I'm remembered as just a great basketball player, I've done something wrong. So I don't think I want to be remembered for my editing skills or my filmmaking skills or the amount of talent that I had. I do want to be remembered for how I lived my life.
Marriage is great, but it's got to be right. But when you find the right one, you're so lucky. And I say, cherish. The word is cherish. Cherish what you have. Don't take for granted marriage or love, because if you do, you're gonna lose it. You get one life. You better make it right.
There's a Buddhist saying that you always need a little bird on your shoulder that's saying, you will die, you will die, you will die. And that enriches your life, that enriches each moment of your life. And I don't have a little bird, I just have this whole institution saying that.